All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I recognize the gentleman from Florida, Aaron Bean, to lead us in the pledge and the prayer.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. A very good morning, Small Business Committee. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, we are just truly grateful for the blessings of liberty and choosing our own way. We know, Lord, that it's not easy to have freedom, and we ask for wisdom and courage to do great things, that we can just continue to live in a great country. We ask that those winds of freedom continue to blow around the world. We're with people in Israel that are still suffering from just horrendous attacks, and so we're with them, and hostages and families, and we're grateful for those that help defend that freedom and have defended that freedom and will defend that freedom. So all this we ask in your name. Amen. Join me in the pledge, ladies and gentlemen, and here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I now call the Committee on Small Business to order, and without objection, the chair is authorized to declare a recess of the committee at any time. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. First, I want to thank our witness, Associate Administrator Madrid, for joining us today. I hope this hearing will continue a productive dialogue on how we can ensure SBA resources are being used to reach the largest amount of small businesses across our country. Owning your own small business is one of the most rewarding careers in America, and you get to put your time and effort into something that you are passionate about and fulfill a need in the marketplace. We all know that to be a successful small business owner, you do not need government assistance. However, for some people that don't know where to begin their entrepreneurial journey, the SBA can help. And through a network of resource partners, the SBA offers assistance to businesses in all stages of their life cycle. Whether it's a small business owner that's unsure about which lending product would be best suited for their business, or someone looking to hire additional workers from local community colleges, the SBA has resources that can be utilized. Since we're spending taxpayer dollars on providing these resources to entrepreneurs, it's our duty to make sure that these programs are operating effectively and efficiently. Unfortunately, we have seen the SBA stray away from the programs and have a known track record that have a known track record of success. For example, in 2021, the Small Business Development Center program assisted over 306,000 clients, costing roughly $400 per client. During the same period, the Community Navigator program assisted 16,312 clients, costing more than $7,000 per business helped. The metrics of these two programs speak for themselves. One of these programs is simply not worth the money. However, in President Biden's 2024 budget request, the SBA wants to take funds away from the SBDC program and give it to the Community Navigator program. As with any taxpayer-funded program, money should be allocated toward what we know works, and this committee has focused on spotlighting duplicative or wasteful programs within the SBA. Outside of just the Community Navigators program, I hope today we can learn more about the general structure of many of the other entrepreneurial development programs offered by the agency. I want to know how the programming being offered by small business development centers, women's business centers, SCORE program, and regional innovation clusters are serving different needs. We've seen multiple OIG reports highlighting the duplicative nature of some of these programs, and it is our duty to evaluate how these resources can be best tailored to service our nation's small businesses. Additionally, we must ensure that the services being offered to small businesses are relevant to their current needs. The last few years, we have consistently heard from small businesses that inflation, regulations, and worker shortages have been a main concern. And I'm eager to hear today how the SBA resource partners are advising our nation's small businesses on how to deal with those various challenges. As a committee, we remain focused on putting Main Street America first. Associate Administrator Madrid, I want to thank you again for being here with us today, and I'm looking forward to today's conversation. With that, I yield to our distinguished ranking member from New York, Ms. Velasquez. I now recognize the distinguished ranking member for her opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. America's 33 million small businesses are the foundation of our nation's economy. They account for 2/3 of new jobs and have powered our post-pandemic recovery. Launching a small business, though, is not for the faint of heart. When it comes to turning a great idea into a thriving business, entrepreneurs can face a number of challenges. To assist entrepreneurs, SBA offers a range of free or low-cost entrepreneurial counseling and training services. The services are delivered through the Small Business Development Centers, Women Business Centers, and SCORE. They counsel approximately 1 million small business owners every year. Entrepreneurial development initiatives have proven to be a great return on investment. Studies have shown that small businesses receiving 3 or more hours of counseling have higher survival rates than firms that do not receive assistance. Unfortunately, these services are only reaching a small fraction of our nation's small businesses, and certain communities can be left behind. A recent report by the Office of Advocacy confirms that large and persistent racial disparities in business ownership and outcomes have existed for some time in the United States and are well known. Only 5% of blacks and 8% of Latino-owned small businesses compared to more than 10% of non-Latino whites. Moreover, black and Latino-owned businesses have lower average sales and fewer employees. A well-known challenge for women, minority, and rural entrepreneurs is lack of access to capital and mentorship. Today, I hope to learn what your office is doing to address these challenges and increase counseling to communities that need it most. I would also like to know what is working well and what needs to be improved at the Office of Entrepreneurial Development. And it will be helpful to hear your views on the pending legislation such as the SBDC Improvements Act of 2023, the Women's Business Centers Improvement Act of 2023, and the SCORE for Small Business Act. These bills easily passed the House in each of the last 2 Congresses. My Democratic colleagues and I are fully committed to serving America's entrepreneurs and providing resources that put them in the best position to survive and thrive. My hope is that we will be able to reauthorize these programs and provide adequate levels of funding. With that said, we are days away from a potential Republican government shutdown, and small businesses deserve to know that the SBA will be open for business. Welcome, Mr. Madrid. I look forward to hearing your testimony. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back. Thank you.
I'll now introduce our witness, Mr. Mark Madrid. Mr. Madrid is the Associate Administrator for the Office of Entrepreneurial Development at the Small Business Administration located here in Washington, D.C. The Office of Entrepreneurial Development helps educate entrepreneurs on how to start and grow their businesses through a network of resource partners. Prior to serving at the SBA, Mr. Madrid served as the CEO of Latino Business Action Network, a national 501c3 organization. He was named the 2019 Silicon Valley Nonprofit CEO of the Year by the Silicon Valley Business Journal. He also serves on the Board of Trustees for Scholarship America and is an honorary colonel of the U.S. Army and Jefferson Award recipient. Mr. Madrid attended the University of Texas at Austin for undergrad and later earned his master's degree in nonprofit administration from the University of Notre Dame. Mr. Madrid, thank you for joining us today for this important hearing, and we look forward to the conversation ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
But before recognizing the witness, I would like to remind you that you've got 5 minutes and 5 minutes for your comments. And if you see the red light turn on, it means that your 5 minutes have concluded and you just need to wrap up your testimony.
Thank
and now
you.
recognize Mr. Madrid for his 5-minute opening remarks.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Ranking Member Velasquez, and distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the invitation to discuss the SBA Office of Entrepreneurial Development, OED. I came to the Small Business Administration from the private and nonprofit sectors, and I have seen firsthand the way that public-private sector partnerships can benefit our small businesses. Prior to SBA, I led the Stanford University Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative, Latino Business Action Network, and as a proud Texan and the son of a small business owner, I previously served as CEO of the Greater Austin Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and COO of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Since 2021, I've been privileged to lead the OED, the SBA's technical assistance arm, on the ground that helps our small businesses access training, counseling, and other resources. Under Administrator Guzman's leadership, OED has made great progress in working to help small business owners grow through a customer-centric and technology-forward approach. Our goal is to nurture long-term relationships enduring through respective business life cycles. The U.S. economy continues to experience a record small business boom with more than 14 million new small business applications since January 2021. More Americans are starting small businesses than ever before. Acts of hope, as President Biden called them in the State of the Union address. SBA OED leads the Thrive Emerging Leaders Reimagine program, which provides executive-level training designed to accelerate growth of small businesses. More than 8,000 small businesses have graduated from this initiative since 2008, supporting nearly $1 billion in new financing and over $4 billion in government contracting. SBA amplifies its reach through the network of resource partners, the largest of which is the SBDC program, which are affiliated with state universities, economic development agencies, and other partners, have notable reach via 63 lead centers and nearly 900 service centers. The SBDC network counseled over 306,000 clients in fiscal year 22 and helped them start over 20,000 new small businesses and obtain over $7.8 billion in capital. Our nation's record small business boom is being led by women, particularly women of color. And FY22, WBCs, our Women's Business Center, served more than 84,000 clients with a range of services from counseling, business planning, capital readiness, and government contracting. This led to more than 2,800 new business starts and over 8,350 loans. Under this administration, we have tripled the number of WBCs at historically black colleges and universities, Hispanic-serving institutions, and other MSIs. Another critical partner during this record small business boom is SCORE. Celebrating its 60th anniversary next year, SCORE provides free mentoring, personalized coaching, and education to our small businesses from volunteer experts who have demonstrated track record and distinguished business knowledge. With more than 10,000 volunteers across 50 states, Puerto Rico, and U.S. territories, SCORE served more than 322,000 unique clients in FY22 alone. Importantly, SCORE has also expanded their reach to ensure that underserved entrepreneurs have access to services. And finally, I highlight the impact of Community Navigators. In the first 18 months of the program, Community Navigators served nearly 29,000 unique clients and helped them access $249 million in approved funding. More than 294,000 individuals attending a training session hosted by Community Navigators, and service provided 175,000 hours of training and counseling services. In closing, I'm energized to lead OED with our delivery of critical and timely services for our resilient and diverse U.S. small businesses. With administrators' whole of SBA approach, we will continue to increase entrepreneurial and capital readiness support for America's small businesses. Just as my dad and mom built a Texas Panhandle welding business from the ground up in the Texas Panhandle, our nation's small businesses are building and serving as the backbone of our economy every single day. Personally, I've never met a more resilient group than our U.S. small business owners, no matter how small they are, what they look like, where they come from, or where they operate. It is truly the highest honor imaginable serving them. It is an honor to appear before you today, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to the member questions under the 5-minute rule, and I will recognize myself for 5 minutes. Mr. Madrid, recently the Office of Small Business Development Centers published a final rule for SBDC program, which allows private business data to be shared with the government. This rule also gives the SBA administrator the discretion to share data about companies who have sought assistance from an SBDC with other federal agencies and state governments. Mr. Madrid, looking at the public comments for this rule, there were about 50 for the proposed privacy change. Of the 50 comments received, how many SBDCs have expressed support for this expanded privacy regulation?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. In terms of, this is about oversight when it comes to privacy. We've clarified what this could mean in terms of a state or federal entity audit if they're doing business with the SBDCs, which is the case beyond the federal government working and the SBA working with the SBDCs. In terms of the public comments and the SBDC regs, over 75% of the comments were approved, but there is this position on privacy.
For the 50 that had questions with privacy, how many expressed concern?
I would have to be complete and accurate, I would have to get back to you through our Office of SBDCs.
About percentage-wise.
But 75% of the comments from the SBDCs were approved.
How many expressed concerns with the regulation?
There were concerns about privacy, as you mentioned, and we...
Do you know what percentage of those
I don't know the percentage. I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay, that would be great.
Complete and accurate.
So can you tell me which state government or federal agencies have ever requested information data from the SBA regarding companies that use its SBDC services?
To my knowledge, I don't have any knowledge of that. This is more of oversight.
So can you help me understand then if we've never had a request, then what's the need for this rule? Because if it's never been asked for, then why move forward with another burden when businesses are already struggling to stay afloat?
Madam Chair, we share your views in terms of the importance of privacy, and we protect privacy ferociously in terms of FISMA standards and also encryption of data. In this case, we just wanted to improve, actually, the safeguards of privacy in the case of a federal or state agency auditing a center, which we
But
owe.
we've never, but we, to your knowledge, it hasn't happened. So why the need for the bill?
We
For
just
the
want to make
additional
sure that
regulation?
we just want to make sure that we're, oversight is something that is important to the American taxpayer dollar, is important to the public. So this is about oversight.
Okay. So there's so many more things that we could be doing. It seems like you're looking for a solution that doesn't have you have a solution, but there's no problem. So how can the community be sure that the SBA will not share client data with other agencies or state governments as a tool to get around constitutional subpoena and warrant requirements?
Well, we take privacy seriously, as mentioned previously. We're FISMA compliant. We encrypt the data, whether it's at storage or rest. We made the SBDC regulations, by the way, have not been updated since 1995. So we're also bringing them up to code because we had temporary Band-Aids when it came to our 2 CFR requirements, which are, in layman's term, grant-making requirements have been updated 17 times since 1995. So that was also a measure to update this, to bring them up to code from the Small Business Act.
So we're updating the tools that would be in place that could protect data from being taken by unauthorized users, but we don't have it yet.
Representative, what I was referring to was the 2 CFR guidelines. This aspect is one.
Well, you just said that they were outdated,
The regs are updated. And
but the technology is already in place and ready to go.
can you be, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I'm understanding
What
the question.
specific tools are you talking about that are in place to ensure that this data would not be unauthorized,
Oh,
have unauthorized access?
sure. I'm talking about encryption through our Office of CIO.
Okay.
And also our FISMA standard compliance.
Okay, so and all of that's already in place.
Yes,
Okay, so
Representative.
nothing
that's-
needs to be updated.
The technology to protect our data is in place, Representative.
And have we had any issues with SBA and access being given when it's not supposed to be, or information being sent out when it was not supposed to be?
Madam Chair, I'm not aware of a situation, but I could get back to you. I want
That
to be
would be
complete
great.
and accurate.
That would be great. We're aware of several situations where information has been shared when it hasn't, when it was not supposed to be. And if you could find out more information, I'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So I now recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Madrid, Resource Partners provide training to 1 million small businesses every year, which is a small fraction of the 33 million small businesses nationwide. What steps have you taken to increase the awareness of these services, particularly in underrepresented and rural communities?
Ranking Member, thank you for the question. There's several things that we've embarked upon. One was an ad campaign that generated almost $1.9 billion new or hits, generated hits to our website, including 5.4 million new users. In addition, we've increased our multilingual services, so there's more pages that are translated in languages besides English. As well, with the Community Navigator pilot program, 70% of those clients said they haven't done business with the SBA in the last 5 years. And lastly, we've increased our WBC footprint and historically in black universities, HBCUs and MSIs and HSIs, and the SBDCs have increased their footprint over 10% with MSIs.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm glad to hear that you are conducting an outreach campaign, especially to underrepresented communities. In your previous appearance before the committee, you testified that SBA was migrating to EDMIS, Next Generation, to increase its data collection capabilities. Can you update us on that progress?
Thank you for the question. Our updated and modernized technology goes live on November 20th. It's Project Nexus, and what this system is going to do, it's going to be more accurate, it's going to cost less, and it's going to provide more capabilities both on the back end at the Office of Entrepreneurial Development as well as with our stakeholders. And notably, they've been involved with us every step of the way. So America's SBDC, the Association of Women's Business Centers, and SCORE, we've had over 25 meetings about this project.
So what can you tell us about this new system? How will the new system increase SBA reporting capabilities and allow the agency to better assess the quality of the counseling services?
Well, the technology, thank you for the question, is going to improve the speed of information, the accuracy. The EDMIS system, although we appreciated it, we had to keep customizing it. We had to graduate from EDMIS to EDMIS NG, next generation. So this provides more of a long-term solution that will sustain the reporting over time and the going concern of the SBA, the agency.
And can you share more information about SBA's creation of a data collection working group and how it has improved the process for collecting information with the updated system?
Yes, in terms of Form 641, we had a data collection group. We met over 25 times, and that included our OED leadership and included our IT manager and representation from the leadership of SBDCs, WBCs, and SCORE. So over 25 meetings in the spirit of collaboration, just like with the Nexus platform.
Timely reimbursement for grants payments are vital for the resource partners, particularly women's business centers. Have you experienced any delays? And if yes, what were the reasons for those delays? And what steps have you taken to improve the process?
Well, thank you for the question. Payment reimbursement is very important to us. In full transparency, we've had some staff turnover in terms of grants management specialist staff. So what we're doing is we're in the final stages of interviewing and selection of grant management specialists. We're also excited in the deputy role that we have somebody that the room knows well that has a solid grant management experience. So we're looking forward to making sure that payments are reimbursed on a timely basis. The other item of note is that we also are working with our women's business centers and the Association of Women's Business Centers in terms of training. So we had recently a training session called How to Submit an Error-Free Financial Report. That's going to be important because WBCs of different sizes, new entrants, will need that training.
Okay, and how would a potential government shutdown affect reimbursement for the resource partners?
Thank you. Well, we would have furloughed staff, so the payments could be requested but could not be processed, and they would not be paid.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Velasquez. I now recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Muser, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, very much. And Mr. Madrid, thanks for being with us. So, somewhat succinctly, can you tell me what your office does for small business?
Absolutely. So we have 3 major offices: the Office of SBDCs that oversees our small business development centers, Office of Women's Business Ownership that oversees our WBCs, our women's business centers, our Office of Entrepreneurship Education oversees SCORES, the Community Navigator Pilot Program, our online tools, as well as online components like Ascent and other government contracting curriculums, our Thrive program, which is our executive level series for small businesses across the country, and our efforts with rural affairs as well, and cybersecurity.
Okay. And your background, you were in the financial sector, J.P. Morgan, is that correct?
That's right. I was in the financial sector and then pivoted in 2009 after the, in the middle of the Great Recession to supporting small businesses on the ground. That's where I've been ever since.
Right. With the Latino Bureau of Commerce?
I was at the Greater Austin Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And
Oh, well, that's great. Yeah, we work with them quite a bit. So what challenges, you must talk with your with entrepreneurs quite a bit. What challenges over the last year or two have they expressed to you that is helpful for you to help them?
Well, absolutely. Thank you for the question. And I'm from a small business, as mentioned, and from a rural place in the Texas Panhandle, Friona, Texas. So I've traveled over 30 states since I was appointed in February 2021. So here are the issues I've been hearing from South Carolina to Texas to Florida to Boise, Idaho, and other places, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, is workforce development is an issue. Certainly access to capital is an issue. People are trying to realize how to diversify their businesses in current environment.
You didn't mention inflation and energy costs?
Well, it's certainly global inflation is an
Their
issue.
margins are being squeezed, and how difficult it is to stay in business, and how they're working far longer hours. Because I could go talk to 50 small businesses in my district, because I'm from the business world as well, and every single one of them will tell me that. It's just interesting that you don't mention that.
Well, I hear a series of issues from our small business owners, and our office is here to support them. So I'm fortunate to be with these networks that we oversee, including our educational programs.
Yeah, but we need reality. We don't need ideology. Don't you agree? So let me ask you this: the Congressional Budget Office, you're basically slashing SCORE and small business and the SBDCs, which have proven effective, by 40% cut to SCORE, 13% cut to SBDC, pretty sizable reductions, and yet you're pouring it on for the Community Navigator program, which is suspect for various reasons, particularly since the CBO has stated that it started less than 500 businesses, which isn't bad, but at a rate of $7,355 per client. And meanwhile, the SBDC assisted 306,000 clients at a cost of $457. So I would just think the ROI for one is far better than the idea that you just like one over the other. Or is there a business reason why you're making that decision?
Representative, every American deserves a chance at small business. I think we can all agree upon that. So there was $249 million.
Every American doesn't deserve taxpayer dollars that get wasted.
The small businesses supported by the likes of the Institute for Veterans and Military Families, the National Urban League, the U.S. Hispanic Chamber, the U.S. Black Chambers, they're mustard seeds. 70% of the Community Navigators clients had not done business with the SBA in the last 5 years. So the evolving nature of entrepreneurship is changing, and I should know I've been supporting small businesses on the ground for the last 15 years.
You're in the position, you get to make the decisions, but we get to provide the oversight, and those numbers are accurate. So please just keep that in mind, right? SBDCs throughout Pennsylvania anyway do very well, and my understanding is the Community Navigator program is not doing all that well, and yet that's where you're allocating far more funds and actually removing them from an area that has proven effective. So that's a concern to me. So I just want you to know that. And I think it's a concern to this committee. I got limited time. Just on the women's business centers, I understand that there was a recommendation by the IG to recover more than $800,000 probably spent funds from the program. I'm out of time, so perhaps you can provide the committee with a copy of the plan to recoup some of that funding if that's something you're working on. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Very much, Mr. Muser. I now recognize the gentleman from Maine, Mr. Golden, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm going to stick with small business development centers for a little bit. You know, the Community Navigator program was set up through, I believe, the American Rescue Plan, and is a pilot program. And my understanding was that the committee never really viewed this as an effort to supplant our traditional programs like SBDCs or women-owned small business centers or the vet centers. But the budget request kind of seems to suggest that's the way the administration looks at it. I mean, you're almost dollar for dollar cutting into SCORE and SBDCs in order to increase funding for the Navigator program. Is there a reason why you've gone that route?
Well, first and foremost, condolences for Lewiston, and thank you for your leadership. When it comes, Representative, to the Community Navigator pilot program, we don't look at it as a competition with the resource partners. In fact, some of the SBDCs are community navigators. Most notably, a week and a half ago, we heard from the Springfield, Ohio SBDC. And in their own words, they said, we've been able to expand our footprint and work with people beyond seeing them at galas and annual events. We're actually deepening and leveling the playing field here. And so the footprint is non-duplicative. And in terms of your question, we don't look at it as one in favor of the other. We look at supporting and wraparound services for the entire entrepreneurial community that includes underserved communities that we need to, frankly, support.
Thank you. I wanted to ask what the administration's position is on the SBDC Improvement Act of 2023, which would help SBDCs better market their services. I'm sure you've heard plenty of testimony or seen data around the gaps around awareness of some of these programs. And statutorily, SBDCs are not even allowed to market their existence to their potential clientele. So this bill would address that. Is that something the administration has taken a look at, and is there a position of support or opposition?
Oh, Representative, thank you for the question. We know you've been working on that for a while. Our Office of SBDC and Leadership doesn't have a problem with the language per se on the marketing, but there's some 2 CFR requirements that we need to look at as well. We appreciate the data collection working group portion of the bill, so we will, our commitment is to continue to work with you on that. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you. And let me just kind of put out there, looking ahead to the next budget request, that I personally would like to see full funding requested at the previous level for SBDCs and SCORE. I mean, SCORE in particular is, I think a great program, a proven program that works and has a lot of uptake in Maine. So it'd be a shame to see any reductions in funding or staffing in Maine, and I'm sure that's true elsewhere.
I'm thinking of that Maine retailer that I visited in Portland, Maine, that said she couldn't have done it without a SCORE mentor. So thank you very much for that reference.
I yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Golden. Votes have been called, so the committee will now take a brief recess subject to the call of the chair. We will resume shortly after votes conclude.
Okay, I now call the Committee on Small Business back to order, and I recognize myself for 5 minutes. Members on both sides of the aisle have already expressed concerns regarding the duplication of the Community Navigators Program with SBDCs. However, the duplication does not stop there. The Office of Entrepreneurial Development is currently operating 2 online programs. One is called the Learning Center, the other called Ascent. Both of these platforms provide substantially similar information. In total, these 2 programs are funded at $13 million annually. This seems like a very high price to keep 2 online resources operational when they provide substantially similar information. So again, Mr. Madrid, good to see you. Good to have a Texan looking at me. Why does your office keep both of these websites active when it appears they could easily be combined to reduce costs and increase efficiency?
Chairman Williams, great to be with you. And in terms of FY24, $4.5 million is projected for the Thrive program, which is our executive style program that trains 800 entrepreneurs per year, and also our online content that you mentioned, Chairman Williams, which is includes the online learning center, which is more about startups, and then the Ascent program, which is a series of journeys that include government contracting curriculum. So that's $4.5 million that's projected for all those programs together.
Right now, on top of the $100 million originally authorized for the Community Navigator Program, the SBA provided an additional $75 million to set up a call center for the program to conduct outreach. However, given the low performance of the Community Navigator Program, it seems again like this was another waste of taxpayers' dollars. So, Mr. Madrid, how many calls did this call center receive, and was the $75 million used on anything else?
Chairman Williams, thank you for the question. So the $75 million was also used for an ad campaign that the Office of Entrepreneurial Development was responsible for. With that ad campaign, there was 1.9 billion impressions and over 5.4 million new users to our website. And so I can account for the ad campaign that included also actual small business owners, not actors, that we're seeing all across the country.
My time remaining as a small business owner myself for 52 years, still am, be 53 next year. I understand the importance of showing up in person to work every day. Customer service depends on in-person interactions, and working from home is not a reality for many small business owners who must decide between staying home and staying in business. In September, the Biden administration announced a new policy requiring employees to only show up to the office 4 days during the pay period. This means that taxpayer dollars are going to waste, as federal office buildings sit simply for more than half of a month. The SBA works for the American people, and we need to ensure the agency is showing up for our nation's entrepreneurs. So, Mr. Madrid, quickly, how is the Office of Entrepreneurial Development complying with this new guidance, and how often does your staff work in person?
Yeah, Chairman Williams, thank you for the question. So right now, SBA leaders and managers are reporting to the office 5 days per pay period, and starting in January of '24, all headquarter personnel will be reporting 4 days per pay period. So we're following that guidance, and part of that is because of union negotiations. I myself, and with 45 FTEs, over 50% are collective bargaining employees.
But why can't they work every day?
Well, we're
Like I do, like everybody does, comes to work. In my business, the car business, people work every single day. They have no choice to not come to work or not.
Chairman Williams, our folks are working every day. I admire my SBA colleagues, and so the work continues.
But if they're not there, you can't see them working.
We have meetings all the time, virtual meetings, and I value, by the way, an in-person experience when I'm not on the road. I am in the office, and so we continue to follow the guidance set forth by the agency.
But let me ask you this. You grew up in an environment, I know where you're from, works everything, right? You didn't take days off, you took days on. Why can't that be the norm with the SBA? I mean, why can't everybody just work?
Well, we're working every day. I can assure you of that. I see my employees regularly, whether it's in the office or remotely. So I look forward to seeing them in person, following the guidance that we have.
But back home in your town, people don't take 3 days. They don't work 3 days. They don't work 4 days. They work every day. And it should be the same up here. So we'll talk some more about that. Next, I want to recognize Representative Davids from the great state of Kansas for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Associate Administrator Madrid, for appearing before the committee today. Mr. Madrid, in your opening testimony, you touched on the importance of the Small Business Administration's Women's Business Center program and the success of, in my opinion, the success of the Women's Business Centers and that program can't be overstated. Across the country, there are 160 women's business centers offering business counseling, training, technical assistance, mentoring, and so much more to our nation's entrepreneurs. Each year, these centers serve more than 80,000 clients. They help launch thousands of new businesses and leverage hundreds of millions of dollars in capital. And certainly, the Kansas City Women's Business Center is no different. It's headquartered in the Kansas 3rd District. I get to represent them, and they reached more than 800 clients last year. And I just want to kind of touch on that. You know, with the help of the Association of Women's Business Centers, every single state has a small but committed staff that's dedicated to ensuring that the entrepreneurs that they serve can thrive no matter where they live. And I do think that it's time that Congress help unleash that program in a more robust way. And to that end, I've introduced the Bipartisan Women's Business Centers Improvement Act multiple times since I came to Congress. And this is, in my view, a vital piece of legislation that has passed the House, overwhelming bipartisan support multiple times. And it does a number of things, including creating an accreditation process for the women's business centers, increases oversight of the program to ensure that we're not seeing waste, fraud, and abuse. And it also strengthens the SBA's relationship with the Association of Women's Business Centers. And then maybe finally, we also would see a cap on the grants for women's business centers increased, which hasn't been done since the program's creation. So I'm curious if, Mr. Madrid, if you could kind of speak to that, the support from women's business centers barely changing since the program's inception, and what you think the importance of and reauthorization of this program can mean for our entrepreneurs across the country.
Thank you, Representative, for the question. Your strong support of women-owned businesses in your area and, of course, across the country. The small business boom that we're experiencing with 14 million new business applications is being powered by women. And so there's certainly, we look forward to continuing to work with you on that. Certainly the accreditation items, the work with the Association of Women's Business Centers, and thank you to Corinne and her team working together. I mean, we're working together to build capacity to also look at exporting opportunities for the Women's Business Center network. Certainly the reporting requirements and increasing the capacity we're all in favor of. So we look forward to continuing to work with you on this.
Yeah, I would love to. Of course, I want to continue to be supportive and not only increase the level of funding because it has a significant return on investment, but I'm also wondering if you could speak to a different portion of the bill that I've reintroduced. It creates a standardized process for establishing women's business centers and helps ensure important oversight measures are included. You know, in 2021, the program was audited and the SBA was given 10 recommendations about how to improve the WBC program operation. And I'm curious if you could speak to the progress on those recommendations, where you're at, and if any are outstanding, maybe a timeline on what that looks like.
Thank you, Representative. So we have 8 outstanding recommendations. There's 5 that involve oversight and a completion of a SOP, a standard operating procedure. We're excited that we have a deputy that has deep grant management experiences across the OED footprint. So we look forward to closing these recommendations near the front end of the calendar year of FY24. The 3 remaining recommendations have a timeline to be satisfied or closed by the fall of 2024 that include recoupment of funds. So we look forward to working with the IG, our internal IG, and of course the Women's Business Center Network, and closing them in FY24.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's really helpful. And my office will follow up about the timeline and make sure we're all on the same page. Thanks so much, and I yield back, Chairman.
Thank you.
Gentlelady yields back. I now call on Representative Crane from the great state of Arizona for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Madrid, for coming today. I was looking over some of the requests from your organization. Is it true that you all are seeking $10.2 million for SCORE in fiscal year 24, $121 million for SBDC, $27 million for WBC, $44.5 million for other initiatives? Is that correct?
Representative, the values are correct for the SBDC, the WBCs, and SCORE. That $44 million includes community navigators and our educational programs like Thrive and our online educational content.
So this is about $200 million, right?
That is correct.
All right. And where does that $200 million come from?
Where does that come from?
Yeah, who pays for it?
Well, the American taxpayers pay for it, and we're excited about. We have a lot of work to do.
Yep.
To address the needs of our evolving ecosystem of entrepreneurs.
I understand. Hold on a second. So $200 million that comes from the American taxpayer for these programs right here. Sir, do you have any idea how much national debt we have right now?
Representative, what I can tell you is the support that we give for our small businesses that are.
It's not what I asked. Do you know what the national debt is right now?
Sir, with all due respect, I know that there's debt. What I'm here to talk about is how we're supporting our small business owners through this footprint, through the $200 million that you described.
Okay. All right. So we have about $33 trillion in national debt right now. Any idea what the annual deficit is right now? How much more money we're spending than we're taking in annually?
Well, I can tell you how we're supporting the small businesses with this footprint.
Okay.
I'd like to talk about that.
All right. Now, I noticed you came in here and you were championing the Biden economy. I'm just going to give you some stats on the Biden economy. Real disposable income is down 8.3%. Home ownership affordability down a whopping 35.2%. Credit card debt is up 35.5%. Monthly savings is down 81.7%. And some of my other colleagues have also talked about some of the burdens that small business owners are dealing with, including inflation and also worker shortage. So I noticed that you weren't talking about any of those issues when you were touting the Biden economy right now. Is there a reason that you weren't talking about any of those and how those are impacting small business?
Well, I did talk about, thank you for the question, Representative. I did talk about how I've visited over 30 states in the last 3 years, and I did talk about how some small businesses have talked to me about the rising prices, as well as supply chain vulnerabilities, workforce development. I can go on and on about the different businesses that I've visited on the ground.
Mr. Madrid, what do you think are the causes of the rising inflation?
I'm not an economist, so I can't get very specific. I can tell you what the small businesses are telling me about inflation and what we're doing to support them in terms of diversifying their products lines, their revenue streams, their bottom lines. We're looking into exporting, digitizing, government contracting.
Yeah. Do you think you need to be an economist, Mr. Madrid, to understand what the rising inflation and some of these economic pressures are? Do you think it has anything to do with this country and this government continuing to print more and more money that we don't even have?
Well, Representative, I'm rooted in small business. Like, I'm grounded in these boots.
Yep.
I grew up in a small business in a rural country, in the rural part of the country in the Texas Panhandle, and I hear their concerns every single day. I've been supporting them for the last 15 years, and will continue to support them with the wonderful support that we have, including with people in this room and you all. We share that passion.
Yeah. I'm rooted in small business myself. I don't need to be an economist to know that if you continually print money that you don't have and then flood the economy with that money, it always increases inflation. And that is one of the biggest drivers of inflation. It's one of the reasons that our small businesses are getting hammered. So maybe if we care so much about small business, we can actually look at the reality of the situation, quit being partisans, and do something to help small businesses. And I know you guys are trying to do something to help small business, but if you're not even willing and able to look at some of the root causes of inflation and some of the things that are crushing small business, the chances of you guys solving and really helping on this issue, it's pretty far-fetched. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize Representative Glusenkamp from the great state of Washington for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Madrid, thank you for being here with the committee today, and thank you for the work that you do. So this committee spends a lot of time talking about ways that we can improve SBA programs, especially access to capital to make them work better for real people trying to start or grow their own businesses. So I actually, before coming to Congress, applied for an SBA 504 loan for my auto repair shop, and it took a year to navigate that. I actually do have a degree in economics, and English is my first language. And that entire year that I was applying for the 504 loan, I was watching commercial properties get snapped up, industrial spaces getting turned into coffee shops and tattoo parlors and things that I like coffee, I like tattoos, but those are not often durable family wage jobs. I actually did find SCORE to be helpful in navigating that process. But the thing that I was thinking about was that people working in SCORE and your partner organizations, like, they are kind of the boots on the ground of seeing what the hang-ups are, what the difficulties are, what's preventing small businesses from accessing these programs effectively and efficiently. And I'm wondering how they are mutually informative. Like, are you getting information back from your partner organizations about where the hang-ups are, what the biggest challenges are, and how is that informing and refining your processes?
Well, thank you for the question in terms of, and mentioning the 504 program. So some of the feedback that we've received is that our small business owners need to know more about eligibility, whether it's a microloan, their efforts with CDFIs, whether it's 7A or 504. Sometimes we have to use repeat messaging as our friend in terms of talking to some small business owners about the changes that we've had with the 504. We don't want it to take a year, is the bottom line. Just talk to a small business owner that's been in operation 30 years with some major bulk printing business out of Los Angeles, a woman-owned business, and she said that the 504 loan transformed not only her business, but her family and her community. But she had the wraparound support of going to our district office.
So do you have a mechanism in place for your SCORE people or for them to come back and say to you, like, here's a problem that we're seeing repeatedly?
Yes, absolutely. So we meet with all of our associations regularly in terms of the OED leadership. I do as well. So I meet with Bridget Weston. I meet with the America's SBDC board, with the Association of Women's Business Centers. So there is that feedback loop.
Okay. So what kinds of reforms have come out of that feedback?
With SCORE, for instance, I'll talk about a current example in Hawaii with Lahaina and what's happening with our whole of SBA disaster recovery approach. SCORE came back and said, we're here on the ground. Kat Shepard, who leads our SCORE chapter, these are all volunteers in the West Coast. She's based out of California. But she says, I'm here on the ground and I'm ready to help. We've got an enterprise system where mentors are available nationwide. We learned what we could do in Vermont with the Vermont floods, and we're ready to scale. So that was the feedback that we received from them in terms of wanting to be involved and taking it to the next level. With the SBDCs, with cybersecurity, we've teamed up in terms of making sure that our small businesses understand the navigation of AI, which is very difficult. What does that mean beyond a trending term? And with the WBCs and working with the Association of Women's Business Centers, we learned we want to do some more exporting. We actually want to understand not only procurement readiness, but also certification readiness, which I have procurement a bone marrow in terms of all that takes sometimes and the support needed to get ready.
Mm-hmm. So I represent Southwest Washington, and we actually don't have a women's business center in my district. The nearest one is across the river in Portland, and they are shutting down. And recruiting there, you guys are looking for the next home. But I'm wondering, in this time when my constituents are left without this service, how does your office prioritize where those centers will be located? Like, for instance, rural communities where we are often underserved and we're losing a lot of our small businesses. How do you prioritize reaching into those communities and establishing services there?
Well, we go through a formal, notice of funding opportunity process. In terms of rural America, I'm from a rural part of the country and grew up in a small business, so rural affairs and what we're doing at OED, look forward to sharing with the committee what we're doing there in terms of with the USDA, also financial literacy and the FDIC and other endeavors that we have planned.
Okay, thank you. Mr.
Thank
Chairman,
you.
I yield back.
Thank you. I now recognize Rep. Stauber from Minnesota for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman, Ranking Member, for holding the hearing today, and thank you to Associate Administrator Madrid for taking time to help shed light on this important topic. My home state of Minnesota, rural, has a rich history of entrepreneurship, from the industries that established a foundation of lumber and mining to emerging industries of technology and healthcare. Minnesotans have always been known for their ingenuity and their willingness to take risks. Entrepreneurs are the backbone of our economy, as you know. They are the innovators, job creators, and the driving force behind economic growth. In Minnesota, small businesses account for over 99% of all businesses and employ over half of the workforce. It is no exaggeration to say that the success of our economy is tied to the success of our small business entrepreneurs. The SBA OED has the opportunity to play a vital role in the development of small businesses across the country by providing a range of resources and programs necessary to grow. But in recent years, many have said the programs offered are not effective and waste taxpayer dollars. Today, we're here to talk about these duplicative programs and the policies that further make the SBA inefficient. The SBDC's program has proven to be successful in counseling and training small businesses across the country. Yet, despite the success, the Biden administration created the Community Navigator program to do the same thing. What's worse is this duplicative program is lower performing and more inefficient. This is just one example, Mr. Madrid, but investments in unneeded, wasteful, and ineffective programs are a pattern with this administration. So my question is, what is the need the SBA OED sees in extending the Community Navigator program, where we have SBDCs and Women Business Centers score?
Well, thank you, Representative, for the question. First and foremost, we value the work of all of our resource partners, the SBDCs, Women's Business Center, and SCORE. In terms of Community Navigator pilot program, 70% of the clients said that they had not done business with the SBA in the last 5 years. We consider these mustard seeds. Some of them are not ready they don't know what an SBDC is or Women's Business Center. We've seen non-duplication in terms of the SBDCs themselves and the Women's Business Centers that are either hubs or spokes.
Excuse me, you made me think of a question. So if many of these businesses, you said 70% don't know what SBDCs and WBCs are, whose fault is that?
Well, I've been serving small business. Thank you for the question. I've been serving small businesses for the last 15 years, and as a Chamber of Commerce CEO, I was a spoke. And so learning these small businesses, whether they were producing ties or restaurants, owners, whatever the case might be, they didn't know that there was a resource available. So it's not really anybody's fault. In some cases, people just don't know. They start enlivening a passion. They want to open a small business like my father did. But my father did not know that there was an SBA district office or a resource partner. And what my father ended up doing was creating jobs there in the Abilene area, also San Angelo, and the Texas Panhandle. So these are mustard seeds that, if they're nurtured, grow into big, large trees. And the likes of businesses served by the Institute of Veterans and Military Families, the National Urban League, the U.S. Black Chambers, the U.S. Hispanic Chambers, we shouldn't turn our back on them, because they're going to reap reward not only with the $249 million of approved funding.
Mr. Madrid, I agree with you. We can't turn our back on the entrepreneurs, and that's why I talk almost on a weekly basis of the $320 billion of additional regulations put on American small businesses. You cannot agree with that. Can you?
Can you be more specific?
Do you agree with an additional $320 billion on American small businesses over the last 3 years under this administration? And by the way, these aren't my numbers. These are the administration's numbers.
Well, Representative, we believe in common sense regulations. We work with our Office
Mr. Madrid,
of Advocacy.
this is a real simple question. Your father was a small business owner. I was a small business owner for almost 30 years. I just asked you a simple question. $320 billion, that's with a B, $320 billion additional dollars on American small businesses in the last 3 years. These aren't my numbers, these are the administration's. As a deputy administrator, you can't agree with that, can you? Do you agree with punishing our small businesses, especially coming out of COVID?
Representative, none of us believe in punishing small businesses, and so we continue to work with
here's the
our
question.
Office of Advocacy.
Mr. Madrid, I got a few seconds. Can you answer the question? Is it good for American small businesses to have $320 billion, that's what the B, additional dollars put on them? Yes or no?
Representative, we look forward to common sense regulations and continue to work with our Office of Advocacy.
Mr. Madrid, I appreciate the political answer. I'll answer it for you. It is not good for American small businesses to have $320 billion of additional regulations put on them. It's not right, it's not fair, and I yield back.
Chair now recognizes Rep. Skolton from Michigan for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Madrid, if you needed an additional 30 seconds or so to respond, I'm happy to give that to you.
Well, thank you, Representative. I just want to speak to the fact that our, and I've lived this the last 15 years, our entrepreneurship landscape is changing every single day. And it's, with the small business boom and 14 million new business applications, we need as much support as possible. And we want to create lifelong customers at the SBA. And I'll close with this. A veteran from upstate New York created 10 jobs in East Syracuse. A business was closing down, and he said, I needed everything. I needed the district office, I needed my SCORE mentor, and I needed my navigator and my SBDC, because they each provided me something different, and he created 10 jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. We couldn't agree more. I want to be on the record as saying we know that you are not out to hurt small businesses, and we're here to ensure that your agency has the tools and resources to provide those supports in the most efficient and effective way possible. I had the honor of welcoming the SBA administrator to my district earlier this summer. We toured the Michigan Small Business Development Center, headquartered in my district at Grand Valley State University, a real source of pride for us. She got to meet the amazing staff that makes this incredible work possible. We also had the opportunity to hear from SBDC clients that shared the challenges that they're facing as business owners. Truly a wide array of small businesses, whether it was a Mexican takeout restaurant, home healthcare service providers, or an energy efficiency technology company. The message was the same. The services that the SBDC provides are crucial. My question for you is, knowing this importance, the FY24 SBA budget requests funding cuts to the SBDC program by approximately 14%. Can you explain why the Biden administration proposed to reduce funding for the SBDC program? And will you commit to supporting full funding for this important entrepreneurial development program?
Well, Representative, thank you for the question, and certainly it's a great SBDC there in the state of Michigan through their lead center and service centers. This is not a competition between the SBDCs and the navigators, or the SBDCs and the WBCs or SCORE. We look forward to you all making your appropriations decisions and funding your priorities. But I come back to the fact that we need as many resources as possible for our small businesses that have different needs. So I could share so many stories, and I don't need a binder or index cards or anything to tell you about how each one of these partners has serviced a particular lane. And more broadly, how the SBDCs themselves, who are navigators, including our navigator, the Florida International University SBDC, who happens to be our Service Center of the Year, how they themselves have said that this program has deepened their reach into their communities.
Well, we agree that there are a wide array of services needed, but in particular, the 14% cut to the SBDC is of particular note to a district like mine. And I'm wondering if you could just shed any more light on, why the cuts there as opposed to other areas, and if those are needed, why that was suggested.
Yeah, well, thank you, Representative. We were looking at the entire ecosystem and making sure that there's a wraparound support for including the smallest of the small businesses. As previously stated, some of the community navigators served by the U.S. Black Chambers and the National Urban League, U.S. Hispanic Chamber, the Local Initiative Support Corporation, some of those businesses, and the U.S. Pan American Chamber of Commerce as well. Some of those businesses had not been served by the ecosystem, and it was not somebody's fault. It's just that we need to put a focus on those businesses as well. They shouldn't be left behind. People with disabilities served by the National Disability Institute as well.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. And in my remaining time, I want to just note, one thing in particular the SBDC is doing is a competition called Pitch Black, which is a pitch competition for Black-owned businesses in West Michigan. Supporting these minority entrepreneurs is a high priority of mine, as it is for the SBDC. What is your office doing to make sure that there is awareness of these types of programs that SBDCs in particular are providing?
Oh, absolutely. We love to share success stories from the SBDCs, including their expanded footprint and MSIs, and will continue to do so. I've had the fortune of working for small businesses on the ground the last 15 years, and when I was, in essence, a spoke as a CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, depending on the situation, I would refer people to the SBDC, and other cases to the WBCs, but we will continue to share the impact of SBDCs proudly.
We'd appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Yields back. I now recognize Representative Pappas from the great state of New Hampshire for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Madrid, thanks very much for your leadership and your comments here today about entrepreneurial development. And I also want to explore some issues with SBDC and some concerns that I've been hearing from my district. One of the hallmarks of working with an SBDC is that every client session is confidential. And client privacy is an SBA requirement. It's set in statute. It's something that our SBDC takes very seriously in New Hampshire, and I hear about it from member businesses that are working directly with them. So privacy requirements help create a higher level of trust between the small businesses and the advisors at SBDCs. Businesses share detailed information, obviously, about their finances, their growth strategies, and new product or service ideas. They also share demographic and business information with the SBDC, such as gender, race, location, veteran, and disability status. So protecting this data is critically important now and will be more so in the future as we see growing issues around cybersecurity. So an issue of concern that I've heard recently is that protecting this client confidentiality may be in question. It's my understanding that there will be some new information that SBDCs are required to upload through the new Nexus platform. There's a concern that this information is paired with existing uploaded information, and it could increase the likelihood that a client could be identified. It's an issue that I'm hearing about from businesses in rural communities and it's like mine in New Hampshire. So clients who up until now have had the option to opt into sharing data may not want to sign up for advising if they're worried about their privacy being in question and not being protected. So I'm wondering if you could discuss this topic. I know it's been addressed earlier in this session about protecting SBDC client data in more detail, and under what circumstances could the administrator be allowed to share client data more broadly?
Well, thank you for the question, Representative. We take privacy seriously. In terms of the forum dynamics that you were talking about, we had over 25 meetings with our stakeholders, including America's SBDC, leadership, the Association of Women's Business Owners, SCORE. When it comes to the demographic information on the forum, they were a part of these meetings. There's also an optional, this is optional information, so you could prefer not to state. But what we've done is we've added demographic information in terms of if you're a person with disabilities, if you're a veteran, a military spouse. Where I come from on the ground, it's important to know thy audience, but that is optional. I was at Gallaudet University recently with deaf and blind entrepreneurs, and if you haven't had a chance to go there, I would recommend that you do. And those entrepreneurs said, we want to be heard. We will gladly state wherever we can that we have disabilities because we don't want to be left behind. We don't want to be turned away from any opportunity, and we're creating jobs for this country. In terms of the specific times when we would be privy to PII or privacy data, they're very specific. It would be a court order. It would be a case where an audit would be taking place for a federal or state agency that's auditing the work of a center. So we believe strongly in oversight. So it's more about oversight than anything else. So I hope I've addressed your questions about privacy.
Well, I know that the statute states that under an audit or a court order that SBDC can give up client data, but I know that the new rule allows the administrator to, quote, consider such disclosures necessary on a case-by-case basis. So I'm wondering if you can help us understand what that means in terms of the administrator's discretion here.
Absolutely. The case-by-case basis is tied to the audit of federal and state entities. So that's clearly defined in that section when it comes to the audit.
Well, I just also want to add my voice to what Representative Skolton said earlier about funding cuts that were proposed to small business development centers. I want to reiterate how important all the entrepreneurial development programs are to small businesses in New Hampshire, including SBDC, which supports thousands of businesses, help them access tens of millions of dollars in capital with an overall economic impact in the hundreds of millions of dollars, which makes a big difference in an economy like ours. Over the years, we've asked our small business development centers to do more for their clients and communities, particularly over the last few years. And given the pressures that our small business faces right now, it just doesn't seem like the opportune time to be cutting back or scaling back support for this critical program. And so I'm hoping that you'll reassess this as we think about funding for SBA moving forward and some of its programs. I hope that SBDC will be funded at a very robust level. I see my time's almost up, so thank you very much for your comments here today. Look forward to working together to support all of our small businesses. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields back, and I'd like to thank our witness today for being here. God bless Texas. I want to add that, right? And I want to thank for your testimony. And without objection, members have 5 legislative days to submit additional materials and written questions for the witness to the chair, which will be forwarded to the witnesses. I'd like to ask the witness to please respond promptly if that happens, okay? And if there's no further business without objection, the committee is adjourned.
Thank you, Chairman.